our Facebook Live this evening. I am Chelsea with Positive Futures, joined with Sherry from Pup Rehabilitation and Conditioning. And today we are going to talk about a very special category of dogs in our lives, the ones that are aging. And there are lots of things that Sherry is going to share her knowledge with us and help us figure out things that we can do to help make their lives a little bit more comfortable. So Sherry, I know that you and I have talked before on here, but for those who are new that might be tuning in, do you mind introducing yourself?
Not at all. And thank you for having me. Hi,
Absolutely.
I'm Sherry. Thank you. I'm Sherry Sprague. I'm a physical therapist for over 20 years. I am from Florida and moved to the Atlanta area 2 years ago. And I have been practicing physical therapy for 20 years, but 12 of those years have been solely on dogs. I got certified in canine rehabilitation 12 years ago. I do have my own business, Pup Rehabilitation and Conditioning, that I had in Florida for over 5 years, and now am reaching the 2-year point in the Georgia area. I have written numerous textbook chapters on canine rehabilitation, and I have lectured around the country on canine fitness and rehabilitation. And I also provide distance consulting around the world for fitness and conditioning for canines. And
Excellent.
I myself own 3 Australian Shepherds that I compete in many venues with.
Yes, you do. They sure keep you busy.
Yes, they do.
So today we're going to talk about our senior dogs. And like I said, they're really kind of special category because they do require a little bit more attention and a little bit more care, both, medically from the veterinary standpoint, but also physically. So can you start by kind of defining what you would consider a senior dog? And does that definition change based on the breed?
Yeah, those are great questions. The senior dogs are near and dear to my heart. I do love working with them. What I consider senior isn't necessarily what the literature or veterinarians consider senior.
Okay.
Typically, a veterinarian considers a dog senior. If you go in, they'll label your dog senior at around the age of 7.
Mm-hmm.
However, typically senior dogs are considered senior when they're within the last 25% of their lifespan, and that
Okay.
certainly can range anywhere from 5 years to 10 years old, certainly dependent on breed, because the larger dogs are, certainly giant breeds don't live as long as some of our smaller breeds. So
Mm-hmm.
their lifespan, they would be considered senior much earlier on in life than maybe a small dog like a Chihuahua would be. So it
Okay.
is certainly dependent on breed. But I also personally like to just look at the dog in front of me,
Yeah.
and how that dog is moving and getting around. There is also a big difference between what is considered senior and what is considered geriatric.
Yep.
I can tell you that there was a study of lifespans, and only 13% of giant breed dogs lived to be over 10 years old,
Oh,
where conversely, 38% of small breed dogs lived to be over age of 10. So
yeah.
taking that into consideration, I like to just look at what's in front of me. Right now, I'm currently treating a 14-year-old dog that looks like maybe a 7, 8-year-old dog.
That's awesome.
But then I've treated 7 or 8-year-old dogs that look like
Yeah.
12 or 13-year-old dogs.
Yeah. And for you, I know there's lots of components that go into that, but when you see that change, is it generally related to breeding and genetics? Is it nutrition? Is it, exercise that they've had? Is it a combination of all of that?
It really is a combination of all of it. Certainly genetics does play a role, which is if you do know the genetics of the parents and grandparents of the dog that you own, you can certainly find out what age they lived to,
Mhm.
because yes, there is longevity in certain lines. Um, so that's something to be considered. But nutrition certainly plays a role. If you feed your dog good nutrition, it's just like us. If we eat poorly throughout our lifespan, typically you may create other health issues for
Right.
yourself, diabetes, heart issues, any kind of health issues that can creep up. And dogs
Right.
are the same. So if you're feeding them good, healthy food, but along with that, keeping them at a good, healthy body weight
Yeah.
certainly plays a huge role in how they move and get around. And then absolutely the one thing you mentioned was how much movement they get,
Hmm.
starting hopefully young, the
Okay.
younger that the dogs are, just like us. I mean,
Yep.
if
Easier
we have
to
been
get motion
sedentary
sooner.
our whole lives, yeah.
Yeah.
If we've been sedentary our whole lives and then all of a sudden at 60 decide we're going to get off the couch and start exercising,
Hmm.
wonderful. It's never too late, but it's certainly harder to reverse things versus if we started younger, 20,
Right.
30, 40 years old. Um, it's going to be much easier to continue on with those activities. And it's the same for the dogs.
Yeah. Now, healthy weight, that's something that I know that you and I have talked quite a bit about. I talk to my clients about that when we see them trying to keep their dogs at a healthy weight because we know how important that is for them. For those that might be listening and not know how to tell if their dog is overweight, could you give them some tips on how they might be able to determine if their dog is a healthy weight?
Yeah. So if people Google body condition score, they'll see a scale come up of dogs, and on the other side, there'll be ratings from 1 to 9, with the ideal body weight being 4 to 5. And
Okay.
it goes over an entire descriptor of how your dog should look and feel to be in those different numbers, anywhere from 1 being emaciated and 9 being morbidly obese.
Yep.
So things you're looking at visually is, can you see a waistline on your dog when viewed from
Hmm.
above? When viewed from the side, do you see any excess weight around the shoulders or neck, or
Hmm.
even along the rear by the tail?
Yep.
And then is there what's called an up tuck? So when you look from a dog from the side, underneath their chest should go up from their shoulders to their stomach or
Hmm.
abdomen, going back.
Yep.
And then when you put your hands on the dogs, an easy way to feel, even on the furriest dogs, would be to put your hands where their ribs are, just lightly get through, if they are furry, get through that fur.
Yep.
And you should be able to easily, just like you can feel the knuckles on the back of your hand
Hmm.
without having to press,
Yep.
that's how your dog's ribs should feel. If you make a fist and you feel them, and you can feel the ribs like that, then the dog is too thin.
Okay.
And then if you were to cover your hand and try to imagine trying to feel those knuckles, you're not going
Hmm.
to. So that would be, your dog is now leaning more towards being overweight or obese.
And for our senior dogs, it's more important that they stay on that thinner side for a variety of reasons, but one of which is the pressure on those joints that are already starting to feel some stress. Is that right?
Yes, very much. So the more they weigh, the more stress they're putting on their joints. And when they're moving or trying to get up,
Hmm.
some dogs, especially as they're getting more towards those signs of slowing down or having trouble getting up,
Yeah.
mobility issues. So if you add extra weight to trying to get up or walk or go for walks or get off the couch, then
Hmm.
it's just going to make things harder for them, and it's going to put extra stress on their joints.
Yeah. Okay. Now, in your clinic, what is the most common is there one most common kind of concern that you see with those older pets?
The most common thing I see with the older pets is arthritis,
Okay.
whether it's arthritis in the elbows, hips, knees, sometimes shoulders, sometimes along in the spine. I've even seen in the toes. Certainly hip dysplasia, any type of degenerative changes, bone spurs,
Hmm.
things that are called spondylosis, which are degenerative changes in the spine. But the most common I see is arthritis.
Okay. And I'm sure the answer varies quite a bit based on all of the conditions you just gave us, but generally speaking, are these issues treatable? Are they preventable?
So treatable in the sense of we're not going to reverse any changes that have happened over time, either degeneratively or through stresses. Like I said, I compete with my dogs. It's a given that there is going to be some joint breakdown.
Right.
I'm not going to be able to reverse that. However, I can certainly do a lot of things to help make dogs more comfortable as well as move easier and better.
Okay.
Some of these things can be improved. My master's thesis for physical therapy actually was on the benefits of exercise with osteoarthritis. And the conclusion was it helps.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yay that I did prove that. But it's
Yeah.
such an interesting thing to be able to look back onto that study and know how much that can benefit not just humans when I worked with them, but
Mhm.
my geriatric and senior patients that are canines now,
Yeah.
just by helping them get stronger
Mhm.
and more flexible, helps them move better, feel better, gives them better support around their joints.
Yep.
And that way the pain is less. And so we can certainly help with mobility by making things easier for them through strength and conditioning and
Yeah.
flexibility work. And other things too, like massage can help them. Um, and as far as when you asked about things being preventable,
Mhm.
a body in motion stays in motion.
Yeah.
Um, and so there's certainly things that we can do to help support their bodies. Omega 3s are a great option, and joint supplements. So
Mhm.
I definitely strongly urge people to speak to their veterinarian about getting their dogs on joint supplements early on in life. I would do this, not necessarily. I mean, again, it's never too late, but
Right.
if you can start them early in life. I start my own dogs at a year of age
Yep.
on joint supplements. So it's not necessarily too early to start them young.
Yeah. And I assume that the earlier you can start with all these preventative measures, the better off your dog will be later on in life.
Exactly. So
Okay.
the more we can do for them when they're young through supplements, nutrition, helping to try to decrease stressors, which I know we'll get into,
Yeah.
shortly, but definitely at fitness as well. Those are all things that are going to be your ways to help preventative measures.
Okay. Okay. Awesome. So if we have clients that maybe their dog isn't quite in that senior range, but they might be approaching it, are there certain things that you would recommend in terms of exercise or nutrition or weight that might be a little bit different than what they're doing now?
So yes, if your dog is overweight, working to try to take weight off of them, keeping your dog at a healthy, lean body weight throughout life is
Hmm.
absolutely crucial. If your dog is sedentary, start today. Well,
Yeah.
maybe tomorrow because it's kind of in the evening now. But I mean, when we are done with this call, you can
Yeah.
get up off the couch and it's really a great time right now for everybody to get outside and
De-stress a
move
little
and
bit.
de-stress and just get moving.
Yeah.
So it's never too late, but of course, the earlier the better. Um, I definitely find the more active we can keep these dogs
Hmm.
earlier, the better off they are in the long run. And it's just like us. I
Yeah.
know. I know as we get older, it's certainly harder. Our tissues change. They're not as extensible, meaning they don't bend and stretch and flex as much as we would like
Yeah.
them to anymore, or what they did 20 years ago. So those would be the main things I would strongly urge. Um, and then, of course, taking measures within your home to help keep your dog from slipping.
Hmm.
So, if you have, most people have either wood floors, tile floors, laminate
Yep.
wood, putting down some rugs and runners,
Yes. Yep.
especially in doorways.
Hmm.
If dogs are going to come in with wet paws,
Yep.
it's a really easy way or time for them to slip.
Yep.
Um, and then especially where they may be running frequently, like if the doorbell's going to ring and they're going to run around the corner to
Mm-hmm.
go to the front door or the window, or when I say, who wants to go potty? My dogs run to the back door. So I always have had rugs and runners, no
Yep.
matter how young or old my dogs are.
Yeah, just preventing slipping even as prevention of injury as they're young.
Exactly. And I can tell you that injuries certainly can increase chances and likelihood of arthritic changes and degenerative
Yep.
changes happening.
Yep.
So,
Absolutely.
when you ask the question about preventative, we're
Yeah.
not going to prevent injuries. I wish we could, but there are certainly ways we can minimize the risk.
Yep.
And that's a big one, helping them with the flooring. So, if you can imagine you're walking around with socks on wet floor,
Yep.
all day long. That's how they are when they're trying to run. So giving
Yeah.
them some traction,
Yep.
keeping nails short,
Yeah, I was just about to mention
big
that.
one, big,
Yep.
big, big one, especially in our senior dogs
Yeah,
because
because they already have a loss of mobility.
yeah,
Yep.
correct. And they also lose what's called proprioceptive awareness. So that's our
Yep.
brain's ability to know where our bodies are in space.
Mm-hmm.
So if they lose a little bit of that proprioceptive awareness and then their toes can't accurately touch the floor because
Yep.
dogs bear their weight through their, like how we bear our weight flat on our feet. They
Right.
bear their weight actually like this. So if you could imagine my nails being really long in order to accommodate or
Mm-hmm.
compensate for that, I would have to then shift my weight back. So you're actually
Hurts me just thinking
changing.
about
I
it.
know. So you're actually changing the entire mechanism of how they are supposed to be weight bearing.
Yeah.
And then they have to throw their weight backwards
Yeah.
to shift to have better traction. So
Yeah. So then that
that's
puts
even
more pressure in weird places, increasing
right,
their discomfort. Yeah.
right,
And
right.
another one that I generally talk to people about in conjunction with appropriate nail length is look out for those Grinch toes. So on some of our
Mm-hmm.
hairy breeds, you get
Yes,
little hair that hangs out. We
I
want to
call
make
them
sure that that's,
Hobbit feet because
yeah,
I'm a Lord of the Rings
yeah.
fan. So
We
yeah,
want to make sure that those are nice and trimmed, and that's something that your vet could do, something that you guys could learn how to do at home
yes, and
with nail
actually, maybe
care
a
and
great thing
trimming.
for you to help work with people
Yeah,
on
yeah,
as far
absolutely.
as the husbandry of working
Hmm.
with trimming, the hair on the
Yeah,
paws
we've helped lots of
and
people with learning the human skills of doing that, learning the human skills of cutting nails and how to do it the right way, how to gain confidence doing it, because it certainly can be a little scary for
mm-hmm.
people the first couple
Sure.
times they do it.
Yep.
We've helped clients condition their dogs to a Dremel. So if you want to sand or grind the nails instead of clipping. And then for some dogs that are, really fearful or aggressive at the vet, that are really, really uncomfortable with body handling, we teach them how to use a scratch board. So we can just prop a board up in front of them and they can scratch their own nails down. And that's something that not only is great training for them, great mental stimulation, but then they can easily file their nails down on their own,
On
front
their own.
and back. Yeah, without
Right.
any extra stress. So
Yeah,
that's,
that's great. And I play the game of it's your choice.
yeah.
And, if you want to eat the peanut butter that's in the frozen Kong,
Yep.
then you'll let me do your nails. So
Yep.
I know that you're big on teaching that as well, that it's your
Yeah.
choice. So
Yeah,
yeah,
I am.
that's a really great all around skill and something
Hmm.
that's really important to address as far as keeping the nails short and trimmed and the
Hmm.
hair on the
Yeah.
bottoms of the pads.
Yeah, and anybody who's watching that has an older dog, just because your older dog might not be comfortable with that now, they're not too old to learn it. I think that that's one thing that we run into with our clients that do have older dogs is they feel that they're too set in their ways to learn new things. And while
I
to some
actually
extent,
disagree with the
oh yeah,
entire you can't
yeah,
teach an old dog new tricks because
yeah, I
you
know.
absolutely can teach old
Yep.
dogs new tricks for
Yeah.
sure and new ways of handling things.
Yeah, absolutely. It might take a little bit of time, but it's certainly something that they can do. So if you guys are having trouble with something, related to animal husbandry, doesn't matter how old they are, reach
Right.
out to a certified professional dog trainer and they'll be able to help you. So, we talked about rugs, we talked about short nails, we talked about trimming those hobbit feet. There's also, booties on the market for dogs
Yes.
and harnesses that help support rear weight, ramps. Do you also recommend that clients use those and train for those kind of before they might actually need it so the dog gets comfortable with it?
So actually, I would love for you to focus on training helping owners to train their dogs, because a lot of times once the owners come to me,
Mm-hmm.
they already need the ramps or the
Yeah,
stairs or the booties or the harnesses. Harness is not so much of an issue, but I get so many owners that want to now start to try to use stairs for the
yeah,
dog to get in the bed, or a ramp for the dog to get
yeah,
in the car. And sometimes my sessions have to focus just on helping the dog learn to use the ramp.
yeah,
But yes, I strongly urge people, especially with bigger dogs, because it's harder to lift them in and out, although
yep.
I'm the crazy person that does.
I do
Um,
too. I'm like, no,
okay,
please don't jump. I don't want the
right,
impact.
right.
Carry my 85
Um,
pound
Oh my gosh, and your dogs are bigger than mine. I can't
dog.
imagine. But yes, I have many owners who do get ramps that they can just slide into their car or
Yep.
minivan or SUV, and then they just slide it out, and the
Mhm.
dogs, can walk up and down it. Some dogs are much more willing to use a ramp than
Yeah.
stairs, especially going downstairs. They're a
Yep.
little intimidating.
Yeah, because they
Um,
can be pretty steep. I've seen some that
mhm,
are pretty
mhm.
steep and don't have great traction. So,
Correct. But if you can find some stairs that don't have what's called a large rise,
hmm,
and do have some traction on them, like I have a couple of dog stairs that are carpeted,
yeah, that's nice.
and so people can use those for their smaller dogs to get on and off couches or beds,
Yeah.
or into their back of their car.
Hmm.
Um, and ramps are a great one as well to help with vehicle transport.
Yeah.
But you mentioned harnesses. I love the Help 'em Up harness
Hmm.
for dogs that are truly struggling or having some difficulties with mobility.
Yep.
The Help 'em Up harness, people, you can Google that. It is a lifesaver. I've had so many owners tell me they were so thankful I recommended it. I've used it myself on my geriatric dogs. It saves your back. The
Yeah.
dogs can wear it 24/7. Uh, it
Hmm.
is it is purposely designed for that. So you don't have to fluster early in the morning quickly to rush your dog
Right.
out for potty. Your dog can sleep in it. It has nice padding and cushioning on it.
Mhm.
And it has a front and a back piece.
Nice.
So,
So you
but
can
the
help
nice thing,
individually.
yeah, but the beauty of it is they detach. So if you just wanted the front harness to start
Hmm.
out, and then maybe if your dog has some struggles in the back end, a little
Yep.
weakness, you can put the back piece on and then they connect. And both pieces have handles. So that's a great harness. If people are using harnesses for the front end,
Hmm.
I want everyone to make sure that they're getting harnesses that come in a Y shape,
Okay.
so that it does not come across. We want to avoid any harnesses that come across the front of the shoulder,
Yeah.
because it's been shown that that can actually create impingement of the shoulder tendons.
Yep.
Um, so that's something to look for in your harnesses, just regular harnesses. There's a couple of brands I do like. The
Hmm.
Rough Wear harness is a great
Yeah.
one. And then as far as booties are concerned, Roughwear actually makes some great booties too.
Yep.
Um, and if people are looking for just a quick, inexpensive, easy solution, the PAWZ
Hmm.
booties are great. You can buy them anywhere. And they actually are like little balloons. They actually
Hmm.
feel like balloons. And they can be challenging to put onto the dog's paws, but
Okay.
a little trick I suggest for people is it's hard to envision, but
Yeah.
the booty is like this, and
Uh-huh.
I tell people to put it over a cup
Uh-huh.
and then stick their dog's paw in the cup
Oh,
and
interesting. Yep.
pop, you can put
Yep.
the booties on. So that's just a quick little tip for
Nice. I
people
like it.
to put the booties on. But it's great because if you think about the texture of a balloon, it's going to give dogs traction
Yeah.
on the tile and hardwood floors.
Yep.
But something to know with that is any booty you're going to use does not allow for a lot of ventilation to
Yep.
the paws. So you want to make sure you are allowing time with your dog's feet out of them. I
Mhm.
usually recommend owners to take them off at night when the dog's sleeping, or for an hour or two at a time throughout the day, and
Okay. To
to
let those feet kind of
initially,
air out and
yeah,
yeah.
yeah. And another tip would be to put some powder
Hmm.
inside the booties so that that helps to absorb any moisture.
Dry. Yep.
hmm
Yep. Just do you use just regular baby powder?
You can. I personally use Gold Bond powder just
Okay.
because it's also medicated. So if
Yep.
there's any bacteria or anything that happens
Yep.
to maybe be in there, it will help with that.
Okay. All right. Um, Real quick, while it's on my brain, you mentioned ramps and steps for getting on and off the couch. And I think that's something that people don't think a lot about. Um, can you quickly kind of go over the importance of that in senior dogs and maybe particularly senior dogs that are longer in body, like our
Mm.
dachshunds and our bassets, things that are a little short and long?
Yeah, and I mean, if it's a big dog, if it's a giant breed dog, usually they can kind of just climb on the couch and then
Yeah.
slide off the couch. But typically your medium, maybe cocker spaniel size and smaller,
Mhm.
definitely do have to jump on and off. So if they do have any back end issues, jumping on can be challenging, and jumping off can be stressful on the front end, or if they are long backed, can have a lot of impact through their spine. Now,
Mhm.
if it's a small enough dog, owners can pick up the dog and put it on and off the couch. But
Yep.
we can't forget, well, but what are the dogs doing when we're not home? So,
Well, and what have they been doing? So if it's a senior dog and they've been jumping on and off their whole life, chances are they're probably going to keep trying to do that
right,
versus all of a sudden you saying, "Hi, I'm going to pick you up now." And they're going, "Okay."
right.
They're still going to try to do that behavior that they've been doing. So,
Yeah.
and
And if
thinking about
it's,
those things early, I think is important too, so that you can start to plan for it. Some dogs, like we mentioned, might be a little bit worried about using something like that. So it might take a little training. And it's better to teach them while they still have some strength and mobility left in them so that they
right,
can gain confidence using it.
right. And actually, I was just going to mention that if you can teach them those things when they're younger and they have confidence and
Mhm.
strength, then when they're older, it's not going to be an issue. But as they lose some strength and mobility, they also do lose confidence. And so
Yeah.
then to say, oh my gosh, now let's try to teach them how to use stairs or ramps. Sometimes it's fine and some dogs
Mhm.
do great with it, but sometimes dogs completely balk at it. And
Yeah.
so if people can plan in advance and introduce dogs to it early on, that's
Mhm.
great. Or if the dog is really struggling and you're not home, and we want to make sure, number one key is to keep our pets safe. There's a couple of options. I've had owners um, take the couch cushions off. So then
Mhm.
that way, there's really not much height to
To
jumping
get
on
on.
or off.
Yep.
Or people have blocked off the couch completely using really creative methods,
Yeah.
or even just baby gating the pet out of the living room or bedroom when they're not home. So then
Right.
that way it can at least be managed when they're not home and then monitored when they are home.
Yep, yep, that makes sense. And some of those things could even be used preventatively. We were talking just a little while ago about taking actions kind of proactively to help prevent or at least minimize the dog's exposure to potentially hazardous situations. So, even when they're young, we know that impact on joints can be an issue for them. So, if you wanted to even start with your young dogs, having them use that instead of jumping on and off a couch or jumping on and off with hardwoods and it being slippery, that could be one way that you could prevent potentially some risks.
Yeah, and especially those puppies who shouldn't be doing that
Yeah.
anyways.
Yep.
That is a great time to try to start introducing when the dogs are really young. So, typically 3 to 9 months old,
Yeah.
and you really don't want that impact anyways, that's a great time to introduce stairs and ramps.
Yep. Yep. So let's talk a little bit about our current situation. So obviously we are social distancing right now. Lots of us are in a shelter in place, kind of unable to go places. And that is to some extent going to have an impact on our daily activity with our dogs, in the sense that maybe we're stressed or unable to go out in public places for health reasons. Are there some things that you could think of that our senior pet people could do at home to maybe help maintain a little bit of muscle mass if they are unable to go out with their dog as often?
Absolutely. And as I mentioned earlier, now is a great time. A lot of people are having a little bit more time in their lives. And I know things are stressful, but sometimes spending some time with our pets actually can help ease that
Yeah.
stress,
Yep.
lower our blood pressure, and just help us connect with our pets
Yeah.
a little better. But like I said earlier, there is no time like the present. Social distancing is not going to stop us from taking our dogs for a walk. And
Mhm.
if you're concerned for whatever reason, or you're not able to go through your neighborhood,
Mhm.
I mean, I have literally even had owners then take your dog for a walk around your house,
Yeah.
or in your backyard, even if your backyard's small, up and back, up and
Mhm.
back. If you have a larger yard, then, walk the perimeter of your yard. So, starting even just with getting your dog out and about, or
Mhm.
just moving,
Yep.
is key. And if your dog hasn't been moving much, then you want to start small, of course, and you're
Yep.
much better off always, if in doubt and without guidance, you're always better off doing several frequent short bursts
Mhm.
versus, oh, you
One
know what, I
big
have
marathon.
35 minutes right now before I have to do anything. I'm going to go
Yeah.
for a 30-minute walk with my dog who hasn't walked in 3 years.
Yep.
So then you're better off actually going for 6 5-minute walks,
Yep.
in that instance. So, starting small, even if you have a dog that's really slow and having some trouble getting around, go 2 houses and turn around and come back. And
Yep.
then maybe again in the evening, go those 2 houses, turn around and come back, with the goal maybe next week, after doing that a few days,
Mhm.
try 3 houses.
Yep.
So, oh, hi,
I just saw that pop up too.
Julia. That's my
Um,
dear friend.
oh,
Um,
nice.
yes. But also, in the comfort of your germ-free home, there's
Mhm.
so many things that you can do. Simple things like what I call 3 leg standing. And I actually was just talking about this with Julia today, because she has a 15-and-a-half-year-old dog. And I was talking to her about this today. So, even just doing something as simple as when your dog is sitting,
Mhm.
either asking for your dog to give paw,
Mhm.
or you raise your dog's paw. And that sounds so simple, but it actually takes a lot of control and strength
Yeah.
for the dog to be able to maintain that sit posture.
Mhm.
And then, if your dog is able to do that in standing, while the dog stands, and you lift a paw in the front, and then lift the opposite paw in the front, and then try a back leg, and then
Yep.
try a back leg, and you start small. It may only be for 1 to 2 seconds. And then your goal would be to work up to 8 9 10 seconds.
Yep.
And the benefit of this is, Julia was saying to me, her dog has trouble sometimes when he's standing to scratch.
Mhm.
Well, but if you think about what that involves, it involves weight shifting and
Yep.
balance, lifting a leg, and movement.
Yeah.
So if you do that and you start working on that with your dog, it sounds so simple, but it's
Yeah.
actually something a dog naturally has to do. But her dog is having some struggle. Oh, hi, Parker says hi. Good. He's gonna work. She's gonna work with him on this, and he loves his
Excellent.
treats. So
Well,
good.
this is something that you gave me to work on. I brought one of my senior dogs in to see you, which is crazy to say that she's a senior, but
I know. Oh my
she's
God,
still
no.
very, very active. Will go running with us for 10 miles, very, conditioned to do that. But she actually had a hard time with that exercise. And that surprised me considering how much we do with her at home and how active she is, but it can be a really challenging exercise. So just take it really slow and kind of make sure that if you are going to practice that at home, make sure your dog has traction underneath them. So standing on a rug, a runner, a yoga
Yes.
mat. If you don't have any of those, standing outside in the driveway, make sure that it's flat and they can really stand up still before you start doing that, because it's more challenging than it sounds for them.
Right. And exactly. It sounds simple, but it's actually, and when they walk, they
Mm-hmm.
have to lift a paw and be able to maintain that balance symmetrically
Yep.
left to right. So that's the other thing. If you raise a left paw, oh, not so bad. And you raise a right, ooh, that's kind of hard.
Yep.
Well, then you're finding asymmetries in your dog, which right there is saying, oh, okay, we need to work this, and we need to work this other side a little more
Right.
than the one that's stronger.
Right.
Other really simple things that you can do with just daily household objects is
Mm-hmm.
have your dog step front feet up onto a step, or an upside down bowl or a step stool, and just
Mm-hmm.
stand and balance with maybe reaching for some treats or cookies in different
Yep.
directions. This sounds also simple, but you would be amazed at how many dogs it's not so simple for. They
Yeah.
have to shift their weight back
Yep.
and maintain their core strength and their
Mm-hmm.
hind end strength underneath them.
Yep.
And then if you challenge them a little more with some
That
head
moving that
movement,
cookie. Yep.
yeah, so that actually it's a simple, fun, easy one, which I'm
Yep.
a big believer in making
Yeah.
everything fun for your dogs. When
Yep.
I exercise my dogs in the morning, they go tearing down the basement stairs
Yeah.
because they're so excited to do their exercises. And
Yeah.
so
Mine do too.
that's what I want to see, and that's the
Yeah.
goal, is for owners and dogs to bond together. And
Yep.
it doesn't take long. We're talking
Mm-hmm.
5, 10, 15 minutes maximum that
Yep.
you need to spend with your dogs to help work them. And you will be amazed at, if you do this 3, 4
Yeah.
weeks, you're going to see a difference. I'm sure you do now with
Yeah.
Lucy, and she's
Yep.
doing her things so much better.
Yeah.
Another simple one, again, if you think about all the terrain dogs have to manipulate over and through,
Mm-hmm.
but of course, as they lose some of that proprioceptive awareness, some of
Yep.
that balance and strength. So a great one for them is to walk them over different surfaces. Put your
Mm-hmm.
dog on your bed, if your dog's allowed on your bed, and
Yep.
have your dog walk back and forth or in a circle,
Mm-hmm.
turning. So
Yep.
turning left, turning right, maybe making a figure 8, following some treats or a peanut butter on a
Yep.
spoon, or snake your garden hose and have your dog walk over the garden hose,
Yep.
or some pool noodles and have your dog walk over the pool noodles, which
Yep.
works balance, it works strength, it works proprioceptive awareness.
Yep.
The dog has to be aware of where it's placing its feet to step over those things.
Mm-hmm.
The mattress is going to give some weight
Simple.
shifting
Yep.
challenges. If you don't want your dog on your bed, you can take some pillows or couch cushions and put them on the floor, or dog
Mm-hmm.
beds, put
Yep.
them on the floor and have your dog walk over and around and across them.
Mm-hmm.
Or even just encountering terrain outside. So things
Yeah.
like mulch,
Yep.
peat, gravel.
Yeah. Things that feel different underneath their
Yes.
feet and get those legs kind of moving up and down.
Yes, yes, exactly. So,
Yeah.
these sound so simple. Another one to help work flexibility is while the dog is sitting or if the dog can't do it in standing, then the dog can
Mm-hmm.
sit. If the dog can do it in standing, then doing some cookie stretches. So,
Mm-hmm.
stretching for a cookie towards its shoulder, stretching for a cookie towards its side,
Yep.
stretching down between its front legs, up a little bit towards the sky. So
Yep.
again, we're working balance, we're working weight shifting. And speaking of, while I have this on my mind when I mentioned eating down, another thing to point out is elevated food bowls.
Yeah. Yep.
So we have dogs that may have some limited mobility. And then if you think about maybe their shoulders or their elbows
Oh,
bother them,
yep.
and then they have to reach, especially if it's a big dog, you have a
Yeah.
Great Dane trying to reach all the way down to the floor to get that food.
Yep.
Um, Elevated food and water bowls
Hmm.
are really great to help them be able to eat better. It
Yep.
also helps them to stay standing while they eat. Because
Yeah.
as pets get older, if the food's on the floor, they're going to lie down.
Yep.
And so that's a great challenge also, is to see if they can stay standing for their meals,
Yep.
um, and using the elevated food and water bowls. So I
Yeah,
wanted to
absolutely.
put that in
Yeah.
while I was still
Yeah,
thinking
I'm
of
glad
it.
you did. I'm glad you did. And a lot of those things that you mentioned with walking on uneven surfaces, putting paws up, those are things that I actually incorporate on walks with my dogs a lot of the time,
Mm-hmm.
like doing little doggy parkour type stuff. It helps
Yes.
mix up kind of blandness or monotony of your normal leash walk, can help challenge them by saying, hey, can you put your feet on this? Can you put your feet on this? And so I'm always mindful, of course, of what surfaces we use. I don't want them slipping or falling. I want to boost confidence, not make them lose it. But I like to incorporate a lot of that on walks with them too. And then it kind of gives you something to do too, because you're looking around for different things to help
Mm-hmm.
provide your dog enrichment and physical activity.
Yeah, and if you're out and about, you can even incorporate nature. So you can
Mm-hmm.
have your dog circle around a tree
Yep.
or a bush or a mailbox.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you don't want to be out in the public world, well, then you
Yep.
can take a couple of detergent bottles, the big ones from Costco or Sam's, and you can do some circles and figure eights around those as well. But
Yeah.
yeah, I'm a big believer in that as well. When I'm out and about, I have my dogs go down little slopes and on different surfaces, rocks,
Mm-hmm.
gravel, mulch,
Yep.
because they have to encounter it, but as they get older, that can become more challenging for them.
Right, right, absolutely. I want to pop over real quick, Sherry, if you don't mind, because we've got
No,
an awesome question here, and it's something
no,
that I,
great.
I, I definitely want to make sure that we touch on. So Amber asked, how about food puzzles for seniors? And I know that you
Oh,
and I, a couple of days, we're actually talking about this.
yes.
One thing with seniors beyond just physical fitness and flexibility and keeping them healthy is certainly keeping the brain healthy. Lots of times
Mm-hmm.
we have clients who have older dogs. Maybe sometimes they go, oh, I don't buy my dog toys anymore because they don't play with them, or, oh, he doesn't need to learn, tricks because he's older. But one way to keep your dog healthy and active is to keep working the brain and the body. And so training tricks is great for them. Working food puzzles is great for them because it keeps that problem solving going in their brain and it keeps them kind of mentally sharp. So definitely something that I would recommend. The only thing I would say, and maybe Sherry, you can touch on this a little bit more, would be depending on how much mobility your senior dog has, I would be selective about the types of food puzzles I give and where I give them. So some dogs that are really, really eager for their meals might be really active while they work on something like a Kong wobbler or a Babolat, the puzzles that they have to kind of hit around to get the food out. So if my dog was mobile enough to do that, but was active, I would make sure I give it on a rug or somewhere where they have traction. Um, if your dog is a little bit less mobile, you certainly could do something like a snuffle mat and put it on a raised surface so they get to snuffle and forage for that food. But again, kind of that raised surface, like you were talking about, will help, decrease the pressure on their back and shoulders and elbows as they're bending down.
Yeah, and same as like the licky mat.
Yep.
So that could be elevated as well. But
Mhm.
I am very big in general from puppyhood. All of my
Yeah.
dogs from the day I get them start eating their meals from
Yep.
food puzzles and
Yep.
food toys.
Me too.
Um, but a lot of my clients with the senior and geriatric dogs,
Yep.
I strongly encourage different types of food puzzles. And
Yep.
Amber, thank you for that question.
Yeah.
And I encourage it for two reasons. Number one, the brain aspect, because yes, we want to keep some of these dogs who are slowing down still are mentally 100% there, and we don't want them to get frustrated. So
Yep.
giving them brain games can be a great way, especially right now if you're at home and you're trying to work and your dog is like, play with me, play with me, play with me. But you can give them some food puzzles or food toys, either with for their meal,
Yep.
or little times throughout the day.
Yep.
But I definitely agree with you. There are certain ones depending on the dog and their mobility. And so if they do have, for example, let's say a lot of elbow arthritis, I
Yep.
wouldn't want them necessarily doing a lot of activity where they
Bending
have
down
to
and
bend
flapping
down.
toys. Yep.
But I might actually want them to do some movement with the front paws
Yeah.
to get them to strengthen their muscles in the front end. So
Yep.
maybe something that would require either holding or batting, of course, on a non-skid surface. We always
Yep.
want to make sure they're on non-skid surfaces. So either rug, carpet, bath mat is a great
Yep.
one. So they actually can be extremely beneficial. I have a little dog that I'm treating right now, and she is 13 years old. And the owners never knew anything about food puzzles, but I wanted her to move versus either lying down or standing to eat. And so they were great. And not only did they purchase a snuffle mat from Camille, if she's watching,
Excellent.
thank you.
Excellent.
But they also purchased one that rolled. And
Yeah.
so she moves along and she rolls
Oh,
her little
good.
food out, and it's adorable,
Yeah.
but it keeps her moving. It keeps her active.
Yeah.
The other thing also is it keeps dogs busy for a longer period of time, because if you just
Yep.
plop their food down, most
It's
dogs are
gone.
done with that in 10 to 30 seconds. But
Yeah.
if you give them a food toy or a snuffle mat, well, then that's going to keep them busy for, maybe 10, 15 minutes. So
Yeah.
again, it's worked their brain, but
Yep.
it has also kept them moving.
One
Hi,
other
Sarah
thing.
Beth.
One other thing that we can see with our older dogs is them starting to kind of lose some of that mental sharpness and start to develop new anxieties and stresses as they get older. And so one thing that we often recommend with puppies, just like we do with older dogs, is give them something like a frozen Kong when you leave them, to help promote that as a positive experience of you leaving, can help kind of fend off or prevent some separation anxiety with them, because a lot of our older dogs can start to develop some new stresses and new concerns about the world. And so even incorporating food puzzles into their routine like that, as kind of a, hi, don't worry about when I leave you because good things happen, here's this fun puzzle, will kind of help them de-stress about the situation and relax. And so that's one more way that you guys could use. Oh, we have lots of,
Hi,
we've got lots of
Ellen. Hey, great
questions in here.
questions. Thank
Okay.
you.
Here we go. Julia asks, any suggestions for puzzle toys for a senior dog that eats fresh food? I could freeze it in a Kong, but I already do that. The slow bowls and lick mats are also good if you feed fresh food. They can be fresh and frozen in those puzzles. If you're willing to wash snuffle mats, you could also do it in a snuffle mat. They also have a bone, the Chase and Chomp bone, which has suction cups on it and will stick to a wall, or you could stick it to like a shower or a bathtub, and you could also put fresh food into that one. Can you think of any others, Sherry, that would be?
Actually, I was going to suggest what you said, the licky mat,
Yeah.
because that can be put on and even frozen if you want it to go last even longer. I use licky mats all the time. I use them for everything. I use them for nails. I use them for bathing my dogs.
Yeah.
So I love the licky mat. I wish I would have thought of that invention. Of course, I did not. But yeah, the frozen Kongs. And no, I wasn't even familiar with the last one that you mentioned.
Another one would be the topple. It kind of looks like a Kong, but it has a little bit of a different shape to it. So those are the ones I can think of. And for you guys that are maybe not as familiar with food puzzles, On our YouTube page, we do have several, we've done several YouTube, Facebook Lives actually on food puzzles, including one we just did on some DIY food puzzles. So if you're stuck at home or don't have any extra finances right now to buy some, there are certainly ways you could do food enrichment with senior dogs without having to spend a bunch of money. So you guys could certainly take a look at that.
And the other thing, which actually I just saw Amber's question, so it may even touch upon that. But the other thing I like to teach people is that a balanced exercise program, whether it's an adult, senior, or geriatric dog, incorporates several things. The aerobic and anaerobic capacity,
Yep.
which would be your walks, jogs, swimming, which maybe now that the weather's starting to warm up,
Yep.
people can take their dog swimming or wading in water. But as I was mentioning some of the exercises earlier, the reason why I was suggesting them is because part of what makes up a balanced conditioning and fitness program also incorporates flexibility,
Mm-hmm.
strength,
Mm-hmm.
balance, and proprioception. So those are really important aspects, which is why, don't get me wrong, take your dogs for walks, take your dogs for jogs, biking, swimming,
Yep.
any of those, walking your backyard, any of it. Wonderful. Thank you for doing it. Your dogs will thank you for doing it as well. But don't forget that other crucial part of the puzzle, because those are missing pieces if that's all you're doing. Now,
Right.
it's great, but we want to also make sure, especially as dogs get older and they do begin to lose the muscle tone and flexibility, that
Yep.
we are giving them that part.
Right. So this kind of actually applies to Amber's question, which I think is probably what you were reading. Any suggestions for senior dogs that are not slowing down and how to prevent injuries? So these would be
Yeah.
the exercises like swimming and hiking, things that work to improve that muscle tone, work to improve that flexibility and strength versus, repetitive jogs or something like
And
that.
Amber, when you say, I don't know if you can answer, but when you say senior dog, how old is that dog? Because for me, just like Chelsea mentioned, her dog is senior, but how old is Lucy, Chelsea?
She's 8.
Okay, so
And she's an Malamute.
So again, though, this is where I go back to what I was talking about earlier. I don't go
Right.
by a number. Age is
Right.
just a number. I go by what's in front of me. If you
Right.
have an 8-year-old dog and she's running 50 miles a week like Lucy does, or
Yeah.
Amber, whatever your dog is doing, keep doing it. That's
Yep.
the crucial part, because a body in motion stays in motion. My
Mhm.
dog, she did pass away a couple of years ago, but at the age of almost 14. And at 12 years old, she was still on the fitness peanut. She was still on the discs. She was still
Yeah.
going for jogs. She was doing all of it. So don't look at your dog by the number as far as its
Yep.
age. Look at your dog as what it's able to do and keep challenging it.
Yeah.
Challenge your dog. So if your dog is active and mobile and is doing things, keep it mobile and strong
Mhm.
through
Yeah.
a lot of these things that I just mentioned.
Yep. So we've got an awesome question here from Sarah Beth. Can you talk about how to decide when it's time to consult a vet or someone like you, Sherry, regarding mobility issues or dealing with strength and fitness? That's an awesome question.
That's a fabulous question, but she's
Yeah.
actually answering it herself, and I'm going to tell her why. Sarah Beth, you are so educated, and I hope I helped a little bit with that, but because Sarah Beth does come to me. However, if your dog is showing any signs of mobility issues, you
Hmm.
need to already have been discussing that with your vet
Yeah.
and consulting a rehab professional. If you're in
Yeah.
the area, pup rehabilitation and conditioning, come see me. If you do not live in the area and I'm able to do some kind of distance consulting for you as far as any kind of declining strength and fitness, I
Hmm.
can certainly help with that. But if not, you live far away and we're not able to do distance work, then I would strongly recommend finding a rehab professional in your area. But as soon as there are any mobility issues, catch it now, because
Yeah.
It is so much harder to do curative medicine than it is to do preventative medicine. So if you
Yeah.
catch things early or even before they happen or when they're first starting to show up, we can do leaps and bounds to
Yeah.
reverse things and make dogs move better and feel better. And as far as strength and fitness, it's never too early to start on that.
Yeah.
So definitely, if you are seeing some decline though in your dog's fitness level, I would first check with your vet and make sure it's not because of any health issues. Make sure
Mm-hmm.
there's no, you never know. There could be some thyroid issues. There could be some heart issues. So you want to make sure it's not a medical issue. And then once your vet says, no, I'm not finding anything medically wrong with it, then you certainly want to try to consult a professional. If it's a strength and fitness issue, then you want to
Mm-hmm.
consult a rehab professional that specializes in fitness. If it's an actual mobility issue, then a rehab professional is
Yeah.
sufficient.
And two things I want to add to that real quick is one, if you're watching this and your dog has been experiencing mobility issues for a while and you haven't seen someone, don't feel bad. There's still time to go consult with someone. You know, it's never too late to seek out help. There are always some things that can be done, to at the least, kind of manage it or make your dog feel a little more comfortable. And two, if you talk to your vet and your vet doesn't necessarily recommend conditioning, don't be afraid to talk to them about that, because I used to be a vet tech, and one of the things that I encountered was that for the general patient, vets wouldn't necessarily recommend something like that unless the client asked for it, because many people won't necessarily take that service. So if you're interested in it and your vet doesn't recommend it right off the bat, ask them about it, talk to them about it. Vets are always willing to have good discussions about pet health. And if that's something that you're interested in doing, don't be afraid to advocate for your pet.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And also, don't be afraid to discuss it with your vet because it's something your vet may not even know is available.
Yeah.
It's becoming a little more recognized in the veterinary world. But like I said, I've been doing this for 12 years and I've taught around the country. And when I first started doing this 12 years ago, it was unheard of. I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you no one knew what I did or understood it. It is becoming more recognized, but I still
Mm-hmm.
have so many veterinarians that say, oh, I didn't even know that that's something that's
Yeah.
out there or is an
Yeah.
option. So don't be afraid to reach out to your vet and discuss it, or even give your vet, again, if you live nearby, give your vet
Mm-hmm.
my information and I'm happy to contact your veterinarian and
Yep.
introduce myself to him or her. Or if you live far away and you have a rehab professional in your area, maybe see if they would reach out. But
Yeah.
it's something we want to help educate the
Yeah. For sure.
veterinary world on. So a
Yep.
lot of times it's a matter of you having to bring it up.
Yeah. I do think lots of people view it as only something to do after surgery
Mhm.
when they're
Or
recovering.
an injury.
Right, or an injury. But I do feel like more people in the sport world are doing it for their dogs to help them stay fit. I do see more vets now recommending it for senior dogs too, which is really nice to see. So I agree that
Yes.
it is becoming more normal and more talked about, which is nice. It should be. We got to
Couple
take
good
care of
questions
our
over
senior pets.
here.
I
Terry's got
know.
a great question, actually.
I,
Maybe
I
you
know.
can help with that one.
I have a completely blind senior. We just moved. Any tips on how to help him navigate my new home? That is a great question. So and what I would say is it depends, and there's lots of right answers. If your dog is stressed about a new environment and bumping into a lot of things, and you just moved pretty frequently, you might consider restricting the spaces they're allowed to go in for a little bit so that they can get comfortable. I also would recommend creating a safe place for them to be. So if they don't already have a crate or a den or a bed where they spend a lot of time, make sure that you're starting to kind of cultivate that with them. And that's where the cookies happen and that's where food happens, so that they have that place that they smell, that they know is familiar and comfortable. Um, Sherry, any recommendations from you in that sense? With our older dogs, mobility could certainly be an issue with a senior and somebody who's blind.
Absolutely. So again, here it comes back to make sure the flooring is good,
Mm-hmm.
because you want to make sure your dog is confident to move
Yeah,
around and has a safe place to move around with some good traction. I always believe start with, one room at a time to help them learn to navigate
yep,
around. I had someone, and Chelsea, I would love your feedback on this. I had
yeah,
someone years ago tell me to either use candles, scented candles, or
uh-huh.
oils, essential oils,
Mhm.
in each room, but a different one in each room so
Yep,
that
so they
the,
knew
the
scent, smell.
smell, correct, the smell would be
Mhm.
different in each room to help the
Yep,
dog navigate a little bit better. So,
yep.
maybe your feedback on that would be
Yeah, I
valuable.
have actually heard that as well. I've read a little bit about it as well. I do think that it would help give the dog one more piece of information. Dogs certainly use their noses more than they use their sense of vision. So that would be a very powerful tool that you could incorporate with a blind dog. The other thing to consider would be blocking off steps.
Hmm.
I
Oh,
worry that I worry, steps going downstairs, steps going upstairs to kind of limit where the dog has access to, especially when you are not
and
trained.
actually,
We don't want.
along those lines, Carrie, and to also tie in the food puzzles, and I do this all the
Mhm.
time with my dogs. I sometimes, if my food puzzles are in the wash,
Yep.
I will do what I call the scatter meal. So
Yep.
I
I
will
love
take
that.
my kibble, and for breakfast, I will scatter it around the kitchen or the living room. But so maybe, Carrie, that might also be a nice way to help your dog navigate through spaces by
Yep.
using his or her nose. So maybe
Hmm.
putting some kibble or treats out and about. So that's going to help with mobility. It's
Yep.
going to help with confidence, and that it's a fun, safe place. But your dog has to be active and use its brain and its nose as well as it forages for the different pieces of treats and kibble.
Yep. Yep. Absolutely. We've got one more question here. Um, Do you think that licky mats are challenging enough to be mentally stimulating? I know licking is a self-soothing behavior, but I'm not sure if it would be as engaging as other puzzle toys. And that's a great question. I would say it certainly depends on your dog's experience level and their motivation to work for their food. For some dogs, that would be very stimulating for them and very relaxing. If your dog is more of an expert puzzle solver, then licking a licky mat probably wouldn't be quite as satisfying as working a more active toy. But again, we want to take into consideration the dog's mobility, how experienced they might be with problem solving, and their strength. So we want to make sure that when we're selecting any puzzle toys for our dogs or any food enrichment, we want it to be challenging, but we want them to be able to accomplish it. We don't want it to be so hard that it creates frustration with them, because the goal is to provide entertainment and enrichment, not to overwhelm them or cause them stress. Anything you want to add on that, Sherry?
No, and I think that is a great answer. Hi, Ro, by the way. Because yes, for some dogs, it's going to be very challenging. And for others, it's more of a soother. So it does depend on, I like to use my licky mats when I am trying to do things like nails or baths, grooming, stuff like that. So,
Yep.
I try to use those more so for when I do want them to be a little more soothed or calmer. But if we're looking for ways to occupy our dogs right now,
Yeah.
no matter what their age, especially
Yep.
like I said, if we're trying to get some work done at home and we're self quarantining type of thing, even the licky mat is a great way to help stimulate your dog in the way of just mentally taking time to allow
Right.
you to do some things and some work, but your dog is busy.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Anything we can do now is going to not only give us an activity to do and help break up our day a little bit, give us something to look forward to, but certainly will for our dogs as well. So that was an awesome talk. We had some awesome feedback from people. Thank you guys for contributing those questions.
I wanted to just add
Yeah,
one thing before we
yeah,
wrap
absolutely.
up, because on the topic of our senior and geriatric dogs, I know it's hard to watch our dogs grow older. It's
Yeah.
really hard. Um, and to see them slowing down. However, having power,
Mhm.
empowering ourselves to know we can do stuff to help slow that decline
Yeah.
and give them the best quality of life that we can for as long as they are with us. Again, having that power to be able to do that can give us at least some comfort.
Mhm.
So knowing it's never too late, but the earlier you can start, the better.
Yeah.
You will be so thankful that you did it, so
Yeah.
that when your pet is gone, you know you did everything you possibly could to keep them around as long as you
Yep.
could and as comfortable as you possibly could.
Absolutely. That yes, it is hard to watch them get older and to see them struggle with things. But yeah, knowing that there's something you can do to help them should give you comfort. So if people do want to help their older pets, Sherry, how can they contact you? How can they find out more information or get some assistance from you?
So if anyone is interested in contacting me and they don't know me directly, they can always go to my website, PUP rehab, REHABGA.com. So
Okay.
puprehabga.com. And then on there is all of my contact information. They can certainly
Okay.
reach me through there. And my office is in Tucker, Georgia.
Mhm.
So I am still currently seeing clients out of my office. We will see
Okay.
how that is going to
Yep.
last on a very limited situation for a
Yep.
drop off only type of situation, but I do a lot of videoing footage during the
Mhm.
sessions for owners. However, I do also do distance consulting for certain select clients.
Yep.
And I will also be offering some private Facebook groups for a small fee. You
Yep.
can join that. I will be offering classes, some different ones. One will be for senior dogs, one will be for athletes, and one will be for puppies. So
Yep.
if anyone is interested in that, you can certainly contact me or Chelsea so that we can make sure you can get into one of those private groups.
Yep. And from Positive Futures, of course, we are also offering virtual consults for any kind of training needs that you might have. I did one with a client the other day, and they were like, "This was so much more helpful than I thought it was going to be." And I was like, "We're doing the same things that we do in person. It's just you see me on a computer screen now instead of in your living room." So we certainly can offer virtual consults. We also have some trick dog classes, and that's an awesome thing to do with our senior dogs to work
Yes.
their brain, to have fun with them, to do fun things. So if you're interested in a little bit of structure with your training program, we certainly could offer
Well,
that as
and
well.
the best way to help strengthen and gain results with your dogs are
Yeah.
usually through tricks.
Yeah.
So teaching them tricks
Yep.
or revisiting tricks,
Yep.
that can be such a fun way to help exercise your dog, but the
Yeah.
dog doesn't know that it's exercising. It just
I
thinks
know,
it's
they're just having
having
fun with
fun
you.
with you.
Yeah.
Exactly, exactly.
Yeah.
So that's such a great way. So definitely take advantage of that type of trick training as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well,
oh,
Sherry,
thanks,
as
Rosemary.
always,
I saw your comment.
yeah. As always, Sherry, thank you so much for joining us. I think this was really an important topic to cover right now so that people with senior dogs or people who have dogs that are aging, can get a little extra assistance and kind of start thinking about some of these things sooner rather than later. So thank
Yes.
you for sharing your wealth of knowledge with
Oh,
everybody.
and you too. And thank you for having me. And thank you,
Absolutely.
everyone, for joining us.
Yes. Thank you, everybody. Great questions, great conversations. We certainly appreciate you guys tuning in. All right. Well, I hope you guys all have a wonderful evening and go hang out with your dogs. All
Yes. Go for a
right.
walk.
Yes. All right. Bye, guys.